Hello and welcome to another episode in our series State of the Election. With Joe Biden announcing his running mates within the next 2 weeks, the two-party conventions scheduled for this month, and Trump seemingly suggesting to delay the election entirely, we thought now would be a good time to explore where the election stands and the developments we can look for in the coming days. So in this video, we're going to take a look at some of the VP candidates that are rumoured to be on Biden's shortlist, how they might help or hurt the vice president, and if this whole thing could end up being delayed. Before we get going, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and please do double check if you're already subscribed for me, because a lot of people haven't made the jump over to TLDR US just yet. We make videos in this series fairly regularly, as well as a bunch of other content, so subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when videos are released. Also, if you want to check out the rest of the State of the Election series, there's a link to the playlist in the description. So, before we get to the conventions, the timeline, and the possibility of the election being delayed entirely, let's start by taking a look at the big issue on the table: Joe Biden's running mate. Presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden is in the final days of the vetting process for choosing his running mate, and is due to make a decision this week, though some speculate that he won't actually announce the decision until next week. Either way, we know the decision is coming, as the Democratic convention is set to open on August 17th, and historically, Democratic running mates are announced 7 to 10 days prior. So, who is Biden considering at this point? Well, as Politico put it in an article last week on the topic, the Democratic presidential nominee wants to pick someone who is like him, or at least the way he saw himself as vice president: loyal, trusted, experienced, apolitical, someone with whom he will have a bond. Within the last few weeks, several names have emerged as top contenders for the position. We've addressed many of these names in other videos in the past, but it's worth taking a second look now that we're this close to a decision and they're still being discussed. So let's start with California Senator Kamala Harris. Her name has been floated as a potential running mate for Biden for several months now. In fact, she's been seen by some as the top contender for the position. Not only does she fulfill Biden's commitment to choosing a woman, she would also appease those in the party who are pressuring Biden to choose a woman of color. Harris would be the first black woman and the first Indian American woman to be on a major party ticket, but she does have her downsides. Although he's not pledged publicly, Biden has indicated to some within his campaign that he would only serve a single term, and given Harris's own run for the presidency that ended earlier this year, there are concerns that Harris would put her own political ambitions above her loyalty to a Biden presidency, especially given Harris's attacks on the former vice president in the early primary debates late last year. Although in a tweet following this speculation, Biden's campaign manager defended ambitious women, seemingly in an attempt to suppress this narrative, which many viewed as inherently sexist. Representative Karen Bass is a new name that appears to have made it onto Biden's shortlist in the last couple of weeks. The California Congresswoman is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and is seen as a fairly uncontroversial choice, as she seems to be well liked within the party. However, there are concerns that Bass doesn't have the experience. Because Bass is a member of the House of Representatives, and House members are only elected by districts, Bass has never won a statewide race, nor has she campaigned on a national level. Bass has also had to deal with criticisms because of her praising former Cuban dictator Fidel Castro. Now, obviously, we're not here to take a position on Castro, but it certainly could present a problem for Biden with the Cuban population in the crucial swing state of Florida. To be fair to Bass though, she's since walked back her comments about Castro, saying to Fox News' Chris Wallace that her perspective has developed over time. But despite those potential downsides, Bass's insistence that she has no presidential aspirations could fit well with Biden's desire for loyalty. It's also worth noting here that members of the House of Representatives are not historically common among presidential candidates or their running mates. In fact, since World War II, no sitting member of the House has been nominated for president, and only 2 have been nominated for vice president. Geraldine Ferraro, who won the Democratic ticket in 1984 with Walter Mondale, and Paul Ryan on the Republican ticket in 2012 with Mitt Romney. and in both cases, their ticket was defeated. However, choosing senators is very common. One reason that is, the vice president has one duty required by the Constitution, serving as the president of the Senate. And as such, senators are more familiar with the inner workings of the Senate. But obviously, as we pointed out in the past, this new era of American politics has offered a lot of firsts, and there's no reason to believe that Bass couldn't be one of those. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren is another option that's been floated for several months. Having run for president herself, Warren certainly has the national profile. However, her age could be a problem. As we pointed out before, balancing the ticket is often an important component in choosing a running mate, and Warren at 71 is not far behind Biden's age of 77. While there's not much of an age gap between them, Warren could provide some cover for Biden with the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Also, as we've discussed with Kamala Harris a moment ago, if Warren does have any further presidential ambitions, this could be seen by Biden as a threat to his desire for loyalty. Susan Rice was the National Security Advisor to President Obama and served as the US Ambassador to the United Nations. She's been named as a potential running mate for Biden because of her previous relationship working with Biden under the Obama administration. However, some within the party are concerned that should Biden choose Rice, Republicans would relitigate the 2012 attack on the US consulate in Benghazi. Not to mention, Rice has never run for political office before. However, the fact that they've worked together before could provide Rice with the advantage she needs because Biden knows that he can work with Rice. Finally, Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth is an Iraq veteran and double amputee who is also currently being considered. As an Asian American woman, she provides support to Biden's campaign with veterans, minorities, and women. However, some within the party have said that Biden should pick an African American running mate, given the nationwide protests in the wake of the death of George Floyd. Biden's vice presidential pick isn't the only thing happening in the election right now, though. Controversy over voting by mail has also been raging recently, especially given President Trump's tweet a few days ago in which he suggested moving the election. This is a part of Trump's larger narrative, that holding the election entirely or partially by mail would make it inaccurate and fraudulent, something we're set to discuss in another video later this week, so subscribe if you want to be notified when that's released. But we'll put Trump's theories about vote by mail aside for now. Regardless of whether you agree with the president that the election should be delayed, or you think that it was a ploy on Trump's part because of his poor standing in the polls, it's unlikely that the election will be moved. While the Constitution does not mandate a specific day for Election Day, federal law does. The Presidential Election Day Act of 1845 sets Election Day as the Tuesday after the first Monday in November, and because it was established by Congress, only Congress can change it. The problem for Trump is that congressional leaders from both parties have condemned Trump's suggestion, so it looks like there's very little chance it would change. States could theoretically bypass the presidential elections entirely though, as there's no constitutional requirement that electoral college members are chosen by election. So in theory at least, the state legislatures could choose their own electors in another way. However, this would be beyond controversial, and if congressional leaders won't even approve changing the date, these directly selected electoral college members don't seem to stand a chance. So it seems that despite what the president might want, or at least what he proclaims he wants, the election date will likely remain on November 3rd, and people will still get to cast a ballot. Whether it's in person or by mail is an argument for another day. So with the election still going ahead, there are two more upcoming matters which we need to discuss: the conventions and the debates. Let's start with the conventions. The Democratic National Convention is set to open on August 17th, with the Republican Convention following on August 24th. Keep in mind that while Joe Biden and Donald Trump are the Democratic and Republican presumptive nominees respectively, they will be formally announced at these conventions. Since both candidates have gained the presumptive nominee status, there likely won't be much drama here. However, it's at the conventions that the parties adopt their full platform, which means that there's still some drama that could unfold, especially for the Democrats. Indeed, last week it was reported 360 delegates pledged to Bernie Sanders have signed on to a commitment not to vote for any draft of the party's platform that doesn't include Medicare for all. Now, with almost 4,000 total delegates at the convention, 360 is far from a majority, but this could indicate a coming shift in the Democratic Party. Beyond the conventions, presidential debates in the United States are sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The Commission sets the rules on how candidates qualify for debates, usually by gaining at least 15% in the polls. This qualification is why third-party candidates, such as the Libertarians and Greens, are normally excluded from the debates. While it's unclear the format these debates will take due to the pandemic, the Commission have several options available. Usually, general election debates are held at universities and feature two candidates alone on stage, with a debate moderator and an audience. However, because of the pandemic, the Commission could opt for a debate featuring only the two candidates with no audience, similar to the last Democratic debate between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. Or the Commission could go for a fully virtual debate, with the candidates only appearing on video, but only time will tell how the Commission will choose to handle it. As of right now, there are 3 presidential debates and 1 vice presidential debate scheduled for September and October. So, what do you think? Do you have a favourite for Biden's running mate? Should the Democrats adopt Medicare for all at the convention? And if the debates are done via Zoom, should the candidates be allowed to choose their own virtual background? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified whenever we post a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name listed at the end of the videos, then be sure to back us on Patreon. There's a link to that in the description.